that is, you know, we have graduates that have graduated 10 years ago and have never worked.
1.5 million of them have joined the unemployment numbers in the last 1 year alone, under your watch.
And it will continue if we don't take the time to put the right policies in place to grow the economy. And it's a diversified economy we need to grow. There are no shortcuts.
Now, let me quickly move to Colonel Usman. When the minister was speaking about some of the issues, she made reference to the troubles in the Niger Delta. And so while there's a lot of acceptance, I think, on the part of most Nigerians that you've made a lot of progress in tackling Boko Haram in the northeast, the general consensus is that we now have new arenas of conflict. The Niger Delta, which has been peaceful for 6 years, we're now seeing bombings. In the north-central conflict between herdsmen and farmers has escalated. Scores have died. How come we're not coming to grips with this particular conflict?
I think I would like to disagree with you in the sense that it is not that we're not coming to grip with it. I can rest assure you that we are doing the very best we could. If you recall, last week, Monday, the Chief of Defense Staff led service chiefs to Port Harcourt and other parts of the Niger Delta. Our plans are on to make sure that that problem is nipped in the bud. And by 1:35 a.m. this morning, troops were proactive to the point that they averted militants' attack on some of the key infrastructures. And irrespective of the cattle rustling and armed banditry, maybe you should also check the figures or the number of, rusted cattle that were, collected from the armed banditries, and the number of armed banditries that were arrested and the number that were killed. And of course, when you move to the northeast, you know the story about the Boko Haram terrorists. So invariably, it is a story of hope, and I can rest assured.
Not for the people in the north central who've been killed in the last few months. For the people of the northeast, I think there's nobody disputing life is getting better. But what we've also got are now new victims across Nigeria.
Yeah, well, you assumed it to be so, but I can rest assure you.
No, I'm not assuming. This is based on reports by journalists who've covered some of these conflicts. People have died, and I don't think we can dismiss that.
No. Nobody is dismissing that. Well, I'm trying to tell you is that possibly you might be talking about the issue at Agatu and other places. You have not been there. I was there. So I can tell you what is going on there. So it is not just a question of newspaper. We are talking about the realities on the ground and the effort being made. And I can rest assure you that problem is equally being addressed. It's just a matter of time. And new strategies, new platform, and all the rest. And remember, it is not just about military solutions. There are other things that you are not seeing, and people are working behind the scene.
Like what?
People are talking to other people to enable them to see reasons. Possibly you are not aware of the fact that there are a group of youths from Agatu and the Fulani herdsmen that had a meeting where they agreed among themselves in Otufo. I can't remember the date exactly, but I can rest assure you, apart from the troops we have on the ground, they have also been reinforced. And they have been talking to stakeholders, and that problem will definitely be solved in no distant future.
Now, let me quickly bring in Professor Sagay, because we have to go to a break very soon, and we'll get an opportunity to talk a little bit more about the security issues. Professor Sagay, the fight against corruption, you're advising the president, particularly on this fight. Yes. And the question is, how come there seems to be difficulty convicting politicians of corruption? So we get a lot of arrests on the pages of newspaper. People get called in by EFCC. We get to hear about it. Some walk away. Some remain in detention. So far, no conviction, as far as I know, of a politician for corruption. Why is that?
That used to be the case, but it's no longer so. And it's not quite correct to say that no politician has ever been convicted.
Who has been convicted?
Know, well, quite a number of them. We had the former governor of Bayelsa State. He's a politician.
Which one?
Alamisia.
No. I'm talking about under this particular
Under
government.
Buhari?
Yes. I'm not talking about generally.
This government is just 1 year old.
Yes.
And if you're following, there's vigorous, dynamic prosecution of virtually all the cases of corruption that the EFCC particularly has come across. The cases are progressing aggressively. And so it's a fresh start. A normal criminal case of that sort used to take 10, 12 years and still be in suspense. But if you follow what's going on now in the series, I don't want to mention names, there are up to 20 different cases in court of high-profile people and politicians and so on.
And the accusation is that most of them are members of the opposition.
No, let me finish. I'll address that. They are high-profile people. The cases are moving on. In some cases, the government has concluded its prosecution, and the defense has been opened. So let me put it this way. Within the next 6 months, there will be a series, I don't want to use the word convictions, cases will be concluded, because a case can terminate with acquittal. So it doesn't have to be conviction, but cases will come to a conclusion. We are going to see an end to this issue or phenomenon of suspended
Now, when you
cases.
talk about conclusion in that way, that kind of implies that there is a possibility we could see some plea bargains, etc. Can I ask you, what, in your view, would be the basis for those sort of deals? Because there will be deals. That's what it sounds like.
The whole purpose of plea bargain is to reduce the amount of time and resources the state is putting into prosecution and still get conviction and some returns, which may not be as high as it would have had if it had gone on a limbo and continued the case, no matter how hard it may be to crack.
Now, how come we haven't...
So it's a question of judgment. And in fact, virtually in all jurisdictions, particularly in the U.S., it's best really to do a plea bargaining if you are going to get something substantial in return.
Now, how come we haven't heard the EFCC hauling any senior member of the APC, into its offices for questioning? Why is it that this is completely focused, it seems, on members of the opposition PDP?
It's not deliberate. The people who would normally be liable in such a situation are those who have been in government, who have been in control of resources, because this is what we're talking about. It's corruption, misuse of resources, stealing, looting, and so on. If you are not in government, the opportunity will not be there.
But the truth
These are people who have been in government and have misused our resources.
The truth is there's a substantial number of current APC members that used to be in the ruling PDP. Some of them held positions as governors. Again, I ask the question, therefore, how come none of them has been called in, or at least in the one case that I've heard of, I think Jafaru Issa, he refunded money and he was released.
Well, you've mentioned one. But let me put it this way. If anybody has any evidence of any APC man now who is guilty of corruption or who is guilty of looting public funds, let him come out.
No, but you know that only courts can pronounce guilt.
No, I'm not talking of guilt.
You said guilt.
Not guilt. I'm talking of accusation.
Okay.
So that investigation can start. Be a whistleblower. Give the information.
Quickly before we go to break.
And then we act on it.
Quickly before we go for a break, I want you to think about the fact that the Minister of Transportation, Mr. Rotimi Amechi, former Rivers State Governor, has had a panel in Rivers State indict him for corruption. We haven't heard anything on that particular case. And when we come back from the break, maybe you can respond to that in full.
Credibility.
When we come back, let us take a break. When we return, we look at how the government has performed using its own measurements.